I'm gonna unmute myself. Okay. The video recording actually starts from here. But anyways, so yeah, if you missed it, this is kind of your go-to place for figuring out how to start running Firefox locally. If you have any trouble, reach out, use this Discord. And I'm mostly always checking it. So if you need any help, like I'm there to help you out. Okay, cool. So assuming you have like Firefox running, what is like the next thing you need to do? Like what can you do? I kind of touched on what you have to do, but we're just going to look at it a bit more in depth today. And by in depth, I mean I'm just going to show you the process. So one was you guys have to make accounts for Bugzilla, which is what Mozilla uses to track bugs, or like kind of like GitHub issues. So like when you go on GitHub and you have like a project and you have issues, people assigned to it, people commenting on it, and then you have PRs, which is separate. What is kind of like the GitHub issues version for Mozilla is Bugzilla, because Mozilla is kind of older than GitHub issues stuff came out. So they have their own platform. And this is all separate to the PR stuff. So you don't make PRs on Bugzilla. You make and you don't actually make PRs. It's actually a commit-based workflow. So it's a bit different. I talked about this earlier, which is just what you learned kind of with GitHub is you need to create a branch, you need to work on the change and make a bunch of commits, and then you push that branch as a PR, or you can make a bunch of different ways to do it. And then someone reviews it and merges that branch in. With Mozilla, it's a bit different. It's a bit of you work on commits. You can, of course, you should create a branch to make it easier for yourself when you work on different things. But it doesn't really matter because it's not your branch getting merged in or anything. And I'll show you a bit more about that, but it's a different workflow. But okay, I think I'm going a bit ahead of myself. So yeah, they use Mercurial under the hood right now. So if you look up Mozilla's like actual where the code lives, it's on edg.mozilla.org, which edg is Mercurial. So they have their own Mercurial servers running that do it. They are in the process of switching to Git right now, but you don't need to know Mercurial to do it. It's cool if you want to know it. It is a different workflow. But the thing is when you install Firefox, there's a way to do it with Git Cinnabar. And what Git Cinnabar is, it just converts your Git commands to Mercurial. Yeah, so you can kind of use both. So I would just use Git because that's what everybody uses. So you can transfer the knowledge over. And yeah, I also mentioned a different version control system called Jujitsu last time. I haven't explored it as much, and maybe we can use one of the work sessions to try it out. But it is a new kind of, apparently it was made internally at Google and someone like put it out. It's just to be able to avoid having to branch. It was an interesting thing. I myself have trouble with it. I think we'll look at it in a separate work session, but it's definitely an interesting workflow. A lot of people at Mozilla use it, and they said that once they started using it, they can't switch back, which I want to see if that's possible. But the good part about Jiu-Jitsu is it's built on Git. So if there's any kind of Git system, you can use Jiu-Jitsu on it. But that's just that's just interests. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at Bugzilla. So today, mainly what I'm going to go through is just how do you find that first bug that you want to work on? Because assuming you have your Bugzilla account and you have your local instance running, so you can kind of start looking for a bug and start to like try to fix something or make a patch. So making a patch, I'll get to it, but let's like look for finding a bug. So you go to bugzilla.mozilla.org. This is kind of where you do all this stuff. You can file a bug using new bug. If you see something broken, if you use Firefox often, you can always file a bug. I file bugs here and there. Sometimes things I use Nightly. For those of you who don't know what Nightly is, it's like the channel where developers put like half broken code or like even if it's fully working, it might not fully work like in production. So it's kind of like an early test system. Like it has a couple of 100,000 million users or something. So if you want to try out like new features before they get released, you would use Nightly, and things break pretty often there. But it's also a great way to try out new things. And that's where also if you get code in, like if you push some code, it gets merged in. That's where it'll first like show up. So it'll show up in Nightly within like 1 or 2 days. So you can actually see it being used. And then I think 2 weeks after that, it gets into beta. And then 2 weeks after beta, it gets into release, which is where all the people actually are. But it's cool to be able to see it on nightly immediately. So like right now, what I'm on is nightly. And that's why I kind of have like the sidebar thing, which is not something that's on release yet. It's being tested in nightly. And I have a bunch of things that I've messed around with. But yeah, so Bugzilla is kind of where you're going to look for things. So you create a new bug if you want to. But we're going to be looking at something else right now. We're going to look at advanced search. I quickly showed this last time, but I'm just going to go through it again. Bugzilla doesn't just work for Firefox things. It also is for a lot of Mozilla things. So like there's bugs here for Bugzilla, like because Bugzilla is a Mozilla internal product. And so like there's bugs for like a bunch of different products of Mozilla. Or not products, just just open source things. So it's not exactly clear how to choose what you want to look for. So over here, like for example, it says product Firefox. That doesn't mean everything Firefox. Firefox can be made as a product label, but actually, like if you were to look for like Gecko, which is the browser engine that Firefox runs on, that's like one of the only ones other than Chromium that exists. That's its own thing. The SeaMonkey, at least the team that I worked on, like privacy, they're under something called Toolkit. So if I look at Toolkit, that's a separate product of its own. So it's kind of hard to tell what product you want to use. I would ideally like Toolkit. I knew I had to look for that because I was told look for Toolkit. That's where the privacy engineering stuff looks at. But I think a good way to do it is just go to Searchfox and just look up like where like engineering stuff is. But yeah, I myself don't know too much about this. So if you are having trouble, if you want to work on some very specific component on Firefox that you know you want to work on, come to me and then we'll try to figure out what it's possibly called or under. But usually you can kind of just do a Command F on your page and like look for it. Like or to look for like anti-tracking, it shows up under component, and you can kind of narrow down exactly what you want to work on. So for example, if you wanted to work on networking, I think you look for Neko, because that's what they, oh, nope, networking, maybe. Yeah, DOM networking, there's two, networking cache. You can be as specific as you want. So this is kind of a broad, like, oh, what do you want to work on? And you can kind of choose what you want. So for now, I'm just going to do the anti-tracking stuff because I know it, but I think you can do multiple. If I look for data sanitization. Okay, so I don't know if it's selected multiple. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. So now I have like a bunch of components selected. It's kind of obvious next, like what I need to do. These kind of say what is the status of the bug that I'm looking for. So what these mean, like resolved probably means that it's done, it's closed. Verified means that somebody tested it and said, yes, this is a bug. And so it's verified. Unconfirmed means there was a bug, nobody has tested it, or like they did try to test it but couldn't reproduce, but they have like suspicions this could be a bug still. New, it just came in, nobody's done anything with it. There's maybe a discussion around it, but nothing else. Assigned means somebody's taken it already or someone's working on it. Reopened, yeah, these are all kind of obvious and closed. For us, we kind of want to do new, unconfirmed bugs, maybe verified, because these are kind of like what we might be able to be working on. We're gonna leave the resolution thing for now because we're gonna work on bugs that haven't been resolved yet. But there's a bunch of different ways to close bugs. Yeah. Okay, so once we have like what we want to work on and like the status of that thing, we're gonna actually look for, because this might be your first thing that you're working on. These bugs can get pretty complex and difficult to do. So we're gonna look for a keyword. So I'm gonna go into custom search. Keywords. Oh yeah, keywords. I'm gonna look for a keyword. Good first bug. It'll just show up on the autocomplete once you type good. And so this is kind of set by the people at Mozilla or whoever owns a component. So each component has a triage owner. This person is just responsible for when there's a new bug. They need to just set a priority, severity, or if they see if it's like a simple bug, set it as a good first bug. So this is based on that. It's possible there's bugs out there which don't have this keyword on it. So if you want to like try and look for that, like go for it. There's definitely going to be bugs, which are kind of easy to do, but the triage owner just didn't set it as a good first bug. So feel free to do that. But this is just an easy way to kind of filter everything out because there's a lot of bugs. And I think that's it for now. Like we're just going to do this really simple, good first bug, which components and the status. And then I'm just going to click search. And it should ideally like come up with like a list. Yeah, like there's 3 bugs in the components that I selected. I'm sure there's more if I selected like some other components. But yeah, so this is kind of what shows up. Okay, so I'm gonna be like, okay, this one looks good. I'm gonna select it. And this is kind of what a bug like looks like. Usually it's very dependent on who files it. Sometimes it's like an outside contributor, like one of you guys who files it. And it can kind of, or sometimes it can just be a normal like Firefox user who wants to file a bug. So they can range from like how well they're described based on who's doing it. So like sometimes like it's not very clear what's happening in the description or whatever. And you can kind of see who like it might be by the reporter, this reporter. And sometimes it's like someone who's very like knowledgeable about all these systems and is like able to give you exactly what could be going wrong, what is going wrong. Like, oh yeah, this is the steps to reproduce, like do this, and tell me if it works or not. Here it's kind of clear that it's by somebody in Mozilla. I know them, but yeah, I feel like I think you can check for their profile, see it's an @mozilla.com email. But you can basically just tell from the description, this person knows the insides of the work. So what you're going to do when you see like a bug that you're kind of interested in, title is fine, whatever. We're going to look at the steps to reproduce. So usually they give us steps to reproduce. If you're finding a bug, you should give us steps to reproduce. So if over here it says visit this page. So I'm going to go to that page. And then on that page, click on download options in other languages below the blue button. So download options in other languages. Now go to history, clear recent history, select everything and only tick browsing and download. Oh shit, okay. Another thing to note, okay, I might have made a mistake here because I didn't expect to be going through this, but usually when you're testing these bugs, try not to do it on your actual profile that you use for Firefox. Because right now the steps to reproduce here is asking me to like clear all my browsing and download history, which I don't want to do on my actual profile that I use. So a good way to like do it is like go to about profiles. And then so before I go to that, actually, let me explain what this about thing is. If you haven't used Firefox before, I don't know if you guys use Chrome. Chrome also has a similar thing, but it's like these are shortcuts to get into like various different settings pages in Firefox. So if you were just to be like a normal user and go into like the hamburger menu and find settings, you'll notice that it goes to about preferences. So there's a bunch of these pages and you can find what are they in about. There's just a bunch of them that show you a bunch of different things. You can find it about your cache usage. You can, and it is very useful because when you're trying to figure out if a bug is real, there's usually like cache problems or I don't know, it could be anything. And you usually go to about that page and then find what you need to do. Yeah, so that's kind of what I just did. I went to about preferences, which is, sorry, about profiles. And these are like my profiles. And I'm just going to create a new profile. Test. Something like that. I think I already have a test one, but I'm just going to create it. And then it creates it. So I'm just going to use my old one. I'm going to click launch profile in new browser. Test profile is just my old test profile, but it should.
Firefox is using the profile. I think back in 1 year ago, 1 or 2 years ago, there wasn't the profile in the Firefox.
It was there. It was there. Yeah, it's hidden. I mean, it's not very. That's why it's like. So they are working on. I know from what I know, they're working on a profile thingy. But right, it was always there. I think from a while at least. But it's hidden. It's still hidden. It's an about profiles. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's hard to find. So if you know about profiles, it's easy to like do that. Yeah, if you follow like what I just did, you'll be able to create a new profile. I think there's a way to do it from the command line as well. I don't remember it, but yeah, you can do it from the command line as well. Yeah. But yeah, so now I have this new profile that just opened. So whatever I do here isn't going to affect my actual profile. So now I can go into, what was the page? This page. I'm gonna go here. And then I think it's said to go, oh, that's interesting. Where's download Firefox in different languages? Okay. Um, get to the bug. Firefox, new on that page, click on download options. Okay. I was on the wrong page. Download options and other, okay. And then now go to clear history, clear recent history, select everything and only tick browsing and download history. So the bug says what the actual results are and what is expected. So actual results is what might be like shown, but it's incorrect. We don't want that. While expected results is well what we should see. So what we're gonna do is gonna do clear history. So I just did that with a shortcut, but you can also do that through the recent history. Set to do history and browsing and download history. This is kind of new, but we're just gonna do that. Clear, and I get clear now. Okay, previous page is cleared from history. Go back one page, back arrow. Remains clickable. Oh, I see. Okay. So the bug here is that it makes so this back arrow thingy should become disabled now because it kind of insinuates there's something to go back to, but there isn't because we just cleared that history. So the bug here is to be able to just disable that when you see that. So yeah, this is why it's a good first bug. It's not too complicated. You have to figure out if you cleared history and things like that. And so that was kind of how you try and figure something out. And then usually the triage owner, in this case, it was me, just kind of sets it as a severity and priority. And then somebody takes the bug and finds a solve to it. Okay. The number one thing you need to do once you see a bug that you've verified you can reproduce locally, and nobody's doing it, you can work on it, is add a comment saying, can I work on this? Be like, just even the bare minimum, can I work on this is enough. But if you want to give some more context, it's like, oh yeah, I've been working on this. Can I work on this? If it looks like a bit more complicated, you have to make that comment before you start doing it, because otherwise somebody else might be working on it, and then you might be stepping on someone's toes who's inside Mozilla who doesn't need to do this. Because there's teams which decide what you need to work on. Sometimes they might forget to put an assignee, or they don't actually need to comment. But us as outside contributors need to make sure that what we work on isn't like double work and like doesn't get rejected. So first, make sure that you're allowed to work on it. Add a comment, just be like, can I work on this bug? Someone from Mozilla or the triage owner will get an email or something and be like, sure, go for it. So when you're making that comment, something to note on Bugzilla is, well, you want to be in that person's email. You want to be able to contact them, like get an email sent to them. And a way to do that is like, can I work on this? Is this thing called request information from. This is called need infos internally, which is just, this will basically just send an email to that person. So ideally, if you don't know who to email, which usually you won't, just click on triage owner, because that person will know who to go to, if not themselves. If you have any clarifying questions, or you can do reporter, and then you can ask them like, oh, this doesn't seem to be right. Can you give me some more context? Something like that. And then if it's like you're having a conversation in the comments, which often happens, you can like select, write like an email here on who you want this to be directed towards. Obviously, don't just send it to anybody. It'll be based on who you're talking to or like who you need information from. So that's what you would do. I'm not going to do that right now, but this is kind of the first step you need to make. So can I work on this? Request information from usually triage owner, so you can know. If it's like very obvious who you can ask, go for that. And then just wait for somebody to be like, yeah, this is good to go. And usually with Mozilla, they keep a really good track of making sure that these needed infos are cleared. So they will respond to you within like one or 2 days max. So that's how you kind of get that going. Okay. Then you're gonna try and fix the bug. Maybe we can do like a fix the bug together thing. I don't know about today, But maybe I'll find like a bug that all of us can kind of look at together, go through the process of. Maybe it can be this one. We'll look at that. Okay. Once I'm gonna assume that we fixed the bug, we found a patch, we committed it. So with Mozilla, so you made your branch, you've added your fix, you did a git add, git commit, and you're like ready to like push it. So what do you do now? The next thing is kind of like what you would do with git push, but there's no git push here. You're not pushing to like a remote repository with git. You can't do that. So what you will be doing is using this thing called Phabricator to handle all of this. It's again PRs basically, but a whole platform for it. So I'm gonna get to that Phabricator. Well, Phabricator isn't as important right now because we haven't really finished writing anything, but I'm just gonna go over it really quickly. You can log into this using your Bugzilla email like stuff. So Bugzilla credentials work on Phabricator, so just make the Bugzilla account and you should be good. When you install Firefox, it will also install this thing called mozfab with it. I think it's under /Mozilla. It's called mozfab. And this is like a CLI for submitting to Phabricator that kind of gets installed automatically, and it's Mozilla's things. So say you have like a couple of commits that you have set up, I'm not sure. And then you're ready to submit it. So what you would do is mozfab. Ideally, mozfab's just submit. No need of the head stuff. Ignore that. Just submit should automatically detect where the head of thing is versus how many commits you're trying to push, and it'll just submit all the things. Sometimes this can get a bit wonky, so you can specify exactly how many commits you want to submit by using head like 4, 5, and it'll like choose the last 4 commits to submit. And what submitting kind of does is you're submitting for review. The good thing about this is Phabricator automatically figures out who needs to review things. But one thing you need to, I think I forgot to mention, was with the commit needs to be in a certain format. I forgot to mention that, I'm so sorry. The commit needs to first start with the bug number, which you can find over here. So you look for the bug, this is the bug number. So you just start with the bug number, give like a useful like commit name, like whatever the commit is. And then at the end, you do this I do question marks, and then PBZ is just one of the people in Mozilla who I know needs to do this. Ideally, you would just do the triage owner. But what you can find this through Bugzilla. So like for me, it would be the triage owner, you just put etsahane, something like that. And that would like basically R means review, who's the reviewer for this bug. If you know, like usually you just do the triage owner if you don't know who to give it to. Triage owners usually handle if they want to switch it over to somebody or something. So that's a safe thing. The question mark makes it so that it's not a blocking review. From what I remember, you can also do equal to PBZ. And then if you add an exclamatory mark, it means it's a blocking review, but I don't think that's important. Just do this and you should be okay. So one other good thing is, so once you do that, Phabricator also figures out like what teams are responsible for the code that you changed. And then it'll add like a bunch of reviewers that you might not have chosen to do it. Like for example, I think I'll show you the stack in a second, but I think it was, I don't know, maybe this one. Yeah, like it added a bunch of like 3 reviewers more. That's okay. Phabricator figures it out. If the team is like, I don't really need, this is fine, they'll just accept it and just call it a day. Clearly this was not accepted yet. And this is kind of what it looks like. This is something that I'm working on and it says needs revision. That's a bug on my part, but that worked out. And this is kind of what it looks like once you submit it. And then somebody, the reviewers, are going to come in and kind of put comments. This is all public as well, by the way, so anybody can see. You can see all my internship work. I did get roasted sometimes. Yeah, and then you'd see all the comments for the bugs. And then a nice thing is using this like comments thing to like jump between them to kind of fix them. So you submitted something, someone gave like 10 comments, you can just jump between them mark them as done as you do them, fix them up. And this is kind of where you have to do something that I don't know. I'm not sure if GitHub people do this as much, but you don't add a new commit now once you make your fixes. You do a commit amend. I don't know how much do GitHub people do this when they do PRs. I know that some people just add a new commit saying fix issues and then just squash it. Yeah. So you can't do that here because it treats it as its own like patch. So we do patches. So if you see this, I submitted like 5 commits as a stack over here, and they're like part by part. And it's kind of like when you push this to like land, if you push all of them together, it's kind of like a transaction. If any one of them like fails in automated testing, all of them will get rolled back. It's kind of like that. You can also choose to, I mean, you won't have that power. Like the triage owner usually will push it to land. You can also choose to land like a couple parts of it if it's like stable. But that's, yeah, working with a stack can come in later. But what you will be doing is you see some fixes based on some reviewer, you make them, and then you do a git commit dash dash amend. And what this does is whatever changes you made. So obviously you have to do the git add and then the git, instead of doing git commit dash m or whatever, you do git commit dash dash amend. It just kind of puts that whatever code you've put it into the last commit that's in there in your log. And that way, like you're kind of rewriting history, but you're writing it to like whatever your commit is. And then you do another mozfab submit, and it automatically updates your Phabricator with the changes. And then I'm not sure if I think it requests review again. It requests review automatically from the person. So that's kind of how you go about it. Ideally, you would only do the submit after you've solved all the comments. So like I have this one still as needs revision because I haven't done a submit. Even though I've solved some of the comments, I'm still like kind of figuring things out. So I don't want a reviewer to get pinged when I'm not done fixing their like concerns. So that's kind of how you want to deal with fixing up review comments and stuff. And usually the people reviewing this have a lot of knowledge. So if you're having trouble, just ask them for some help. You can ask them on Phabricator too. Like at the end here, you can like do a bunch of things, but you can literally just ask stuff. And that's how you would go about it. Once everything is kind of accepted, so I think I have something that's accepted here. I think the first thing I opened. So this is kind of what it looked like. They accept it, and that's that. You don't have to do anything anymore. It's accepted. Unless somebody brings up like, oh, I'm accepting this, but it would be nice if you fix this part as well. I like fixing those things too, because these are senior engineers, they know what they're saying. Just fix that before you submit. But you don't have to. I think usually if they accept it, that means they're okay with it being the way it is. Yeah, sometimes they're called nits. They're like comment changes or something like that. Small things. Do the same workflow, get commit amend, push, submit, mozfab submit. And that should be it. If it's already been accepted, it's not going to request another like review, but it'll let the people know that there's been changes. So it's not going to change into revision needed or something. It's accepted, unless the reviewer chooses to be like, go to actions and be like, request, like, okay, I can't choose this, but like, if I was reviewing it, I could choose like, oh yeah, you need to change it. And then like someone on the other side, like I would go into this thing called Lando. Not gonna actually do it, but Lando is like Mozilla's internal like pushing things and tool. So I'm just gonna show it. This is kind of what it looks like. And then you'll be landing stuff. And then there's like people called sheriffs who do the actual merging of the code, handling like going to the next production or release cycle, and things like that. And then once that's done, you're done. Your work is done as soon as your thing is accepted, and you can kind of go on to the next thing. Yeah, that's kind of the main workflow. Do you guys have any questions about the actual workflow, about submitting something, finding a bug to work on, things like that? Yes.
I don't really get the point of having a local copy of Firefox, like the build on our computer. That way, that it looked like you used them. Then you
Yeah.
just downloaded like to run locally the browser itself.
Yeah.
So then, what's like is having a Mozilla like local build just so that you can like
Yeah.
Or having to actually commit anything.
Yeah, so it's to be able to test your change. Yeah. So the nightly, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So the nightly is just to test it if you want. You can also test it on your local build if you want it. And then yes, exactly. So you need to use the local build to kind of make the changes and then see if it's working or not. Yeah. No other questions? Okay, cool. That's kind of the main workflow. Okay, we have like 15 minutes left. I can go over actually, so there's a lot of cool tooling internally for like finding like going through the code base because it's huge. It's a huge code base. I talked about this too before, but it's called there's this tool called Searchfox, which is what I think you will primarily be using when you want to solve bugs. So you could use like VS codes like okay. Okay, well I don't know. I just have like a lab open or something. Okay, well you could use like Command Shift F, which is like a search built into VS Code for like global searching. But it's kind of slow compared to what Searchfox is. So like if you had like a small repository, this is fine. But if you were in like something with like millions and millions of lines of code, Searchfox is like internally built to be able to do well with Firefox's code base. So this is what we're going to kind of be using. I went over this in the previous meeting, but really quickly, you can kind of just search for functions, file names, tags. If you're like solving like a front end bug, like just look for the string and then you'll see where it's been defined and then you can go backwards. So for example, if I was looking for this string, like if I don't know where to start, like this is like a good way to like find where you need to be. So I looked for the string of this thing, this button that maybe I'm fixing. And like it appears in these like files and folders. You select it and then yeah, you get all these things. For the FTL files, I can go over. That's their like translation stuff. Mozilla has browser inbuilt translations. They don't do like Google Translate or something, and they use like community. So we have our own like this thing called FTL for translation stuff. But if you look for this tag now that you know this is what you need to look for, you can kind of look, find it's in this XHTML file. You can find this ID, search for that. Now you have, okay, I guess it's not actually used anywhere. Looks like we hit a little dead end. If I look for maybe this. But yeah, this is kind of how you use it. Searchfox is awesome because it's really fast. You can go through a lot of things. You can look at files, test files, things like that, and be really quick with it. Okay. That's using Searchfox. I think we can like, yeah. So if you guys have like a local build, go to Bugzilla, start looking for your first bug. There is this thing called code review. I don't know how much it's like maintained anymore. People just use Bugzilla. But this is supposed to help you get your first contribution with Mozilla. I think this covers more than just Firefox. So if this is something you want to try looking at as well, if you're having trouble finding something to work on with Firefox, you could maybe look at this, but I'm unsure about how well it's maintained and how things work here. Yeah. So in the future sessions, maybe I can find like a bug that all of us I can like solve with you guys, like maybe on Zoom. Maybe it can be this bug, honestly. This bug looks pretty good and kind of challenging. You'll probably also be able to tell more than me because I'm gonna be doing it with you if you want to do that. And then we can also look into profiling. Profiling is performance stuff and also just being able to debug things in Firefox. It's hard. The profiler is very powerful and stuff like that. And then using print statements is hard in Firefox because of the internal, like they have their own string type. It's not string. There's like 5 different string types for different UTFs and different like bit sizes. And it gets a bit complicated. I just use ChatGPT to figure out what the printf should be because it's kind of challenging. But yeah, there's a lot of internal types. That's where the C++ code gets kind of complicated. So I were to look for some kind of networking component on Searchfox, actually, let me look for the thing I worked on, heuristic. The C++ code can get kind of complicated, and then there's a lot of IPC stuff if you end up working on some IPC, which is concurrency stuff, inter-process communication, because Firefox has a bunch of different processes which handle like the global parent, the internal, the I've honestly forgotten. There's a bunch of different things. But yeah, like the CPP files can get kind of, okay, this one's actually not bad, but kind of hard to read. And there's because of the different like type cases that are like specific to Mozilla. Like they have their own definitions for like auto T array. This is Mozilla's internal definition for an array. And then NS string is, so NS means like, I think it's Netscape, which is what Firefox used to be called before it was Mozilla. Mozilla and Firefox. So it's just because of that, because it's old. Yeah, so there's like convert UTF-8, like you have to make conversions between things. So it can get hard to read. And so we can cover these things. I myself don't fully understand them. We'll go through the source docs. This is why the source docs are great. So if I looked up, I think auto T array, I think something should show up. Let's see if this is code. There's some good documentation, but yeah, like Mozilla vector priority, like there's just, they have their own like things, which can get kind of hard to understand. So we can go over those together. And then let me see what else was kind of complicated. Yeah, like I mean, this was like tough because figuring out print statement was the biggest pain. Like, how do I, like if I was debugging like anything, figuring out how to print it, because it's C++, you can't just, it's not like Python where you just print it. You need to actually type it like properly to be a string that can get printed on the on your CLI, or not CLI, sorry, your terminal, and that can be kind of hard. So debugging is its own thing to figure out. You can, I don't know if you can use a debugger. You could use a debugger. I've never. You could use, I think you can just use a GDB type debugger, which is doable. I tried it once, but it's hard. I would use printfs. Sorry, yeah, printfs. Couts are also like a bit complicated. Yeah. So the code base is a bit complicated. There's a bunch of good resources that Mozilla has posted where there's a lot of engineers which are given talks about the infrastructure, how it actually works, how stuff communicates with each other. And we can check that out too. But that's kind of what the next few sessions are going to be. I'm going to find a bug to work on with you guys, probably this one, if one of you doesn't end up taking it. So yeah. Okay.